Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's fitness programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the real deal of what really works in the world of health and fitness, and most importantly, why things work. Hence the name, There's a Method to the Madness. Today I'm going to pick up on our principles and take on the big doggy, overload. Before I get to that, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They are committed to providing the highest level of home selling. Give them a shout to figure out what your home is worth. They are the absolute best. 386-451-2412. As I've stated before, all of the 7 principles of physical fitness matter. They're all really important. It is hard to put them in order of importance, but if I had to, as I've said, it is really hard to beat overload. I mean, without overload, we're really not making improvements. So the formal definition of overload is the principle of putting the body under more stress than it is used to in order to improve your physical fitness. So we have to provide more stress than it is used to in order to provide physical fitness. Now, thankfully, I should say, hopefully accredited, certified professionals understand how to do that. They understand the systems to overload. They understand what your goals are, so what to overload. But we understand that there is a way to do it that is the best way. We have to understand, though, that we are not going to make improvements unless there is progressive overload. And we have to understand that if we overload, we're going to come up with some form of an overuse injury. So we have to really use overload, and we have to use it correctly. And really, there is such a simple way to do that. For example, if we're trying to get stronger, and that's why most people resistance train, right? If we're trying to get stronger, we need to overload the load, the weight that we're doing. Sometimes we overload the reps, but over the course of time, you have to increase the load or you're not getting stronger. It really is that simple. Meaning, if you think you are going to increase your strength and use the same load over and over and over, you are not going to increase your strength. Can that maintain your strength? Absolutely. And if you reach a point where you've peaked maximal strength, because we all reach that point, then there's nothing wrong with maintaining that load you're doing. Now, there are other tricks you can do down the road. For example, change the exercises and then kind of start all over again on similar exercises. We would call that a form of periodization. That's fine. But the point is that if you want to get stronger, you are going to have to increase the load. Plain and simple. So, for example, the MaxFit way, so the way we've always done it here, or the way I've always done it, is I determine an effective rep range for the client after meeting them and after doing an assessment. Everybody's a little bit different, and after the assessment, I figure out, what is their best rep range? And that could change based on the exercise. But what is their best rep range per exercise? Now, that would depend. Are they looking for maximal strength? Are they looking for general strength, which most people are? Are they looking more for hypertrophy, which would fall in line with general strength? Are they looking for complete muscular endurance? So based on that, and then based on injury potential, based on vulnerability of joints, I come up with what I believe to be somewhere in the ballpark of the best rep range for them. And most people, it's going to be the hypertrophy and general strength rep range, which is anywhere from, say, 8 to 15 repetitions, sometimes a little bit higher. If it's a kid trying to get maximal strength for football or some other sport, it could be less. It could be like 3 to 5 reps. That's very, very heavy loads. If it's a military cadet, trying to hit their military tests like maximal pull-ups and push-ups and crunches, it would be more in the realm of muscular endurance. So it's going to be higher than 20 reps. But most people, it's going to be in that middle ground of 8 to 15 reps. So once I establish those reps, then we must progressively overload within that rep range if we are going to improve. Doesn't matter if the rep range is 3 to 5, 8 to 15, or say 20 to 30. You still have to overload the load within that rep range. Then you are getting stronger, and if you're looking for muscular hypertrophy mass, you are getting bigger, but we have to overload. The way you can do it, the way I've always done it, you have your range, as I said. Then it depends on how many sets you're doing, but don't worry about that right now. You have your range. Once you reach the top end of your range, either once or maybe twice. Again, that depends, if you remember, based on the principle of individuality. Maybe you are pretty aggressive and you are showing great improvement. You can go up and load every time you reach the top end of your reps. So let's say your rep range is 15. You hit 15 reps in great form, because we have to always use great form. We can't compare apples to apples. Like one day we have real crappy form, so then we go up and load. No, we want to make sure that the form always stays the same and we don't try to cheat it to hit the top end, because that really defeats the purpose. But let's say you hit your 15, well, go up slightly, 5 or 10% only. That's progressive overload, 5 to 10%. Or maybe you have a tendency to overdo it. So maybe we go up with you based on your experience or your knowledge or how you interpret what your body does. Maybe we go up every 2 workouts, meaning every time you hit your top end twice in a row. So we're a little careful about how we increase. That's fine too. But we still need to increase. And we increase by 5 or 10%. So that means that if you're using 100 pounds on a leg extension, that you wouldn't go up any more than 5 or 10 pounds the next time. And as you see, as the loads are lighter, like on arm curl, you would barely make an increase. Maybe it's a 5-pounder. If you can't go up because the machine doesn't enable you to go up less than 5 pounds, then you have to go up by doing a couple more reps, and you're going to have to extend your range a little bit. But the point is, you barely go up when you go up, and then you try to reach the top end of your rep range again. That is the simplest, most productive, and safest way to do progressive overload that you can possibly do. Now, let's say you haven't reached the top end of whatever rep range we think is best for you, or you think is best for you, or I think is best for me. You continue to try to get one more rep each time until you get there. And that's probably the most likely scenario that happens with you after a certain amount of time. Let's again say that your rep range is 8 to 15. And one workout you get 10. That's the best you can do. That's great. You hit momentarily muscular failure. That's great. But you hit it, did your best. Next time you try for 11 and then 12. And then when you finally hit that rep range again, the top end, you go up. If you continue to do this over the course of your working out, you will continue to get to the point where you are going to reach your peak. Hitting your peak is a great thing. That's what we want. We all want to maximize our best strength levels. I always think it's so silly when people get upset that they hit their peak. It's like, get upset if you really haven't hit your peak and you're just hitting like mental blocks. Yeah. But if you hit your peak, that's a good thing. Again, You can switch it around a little bit and do other exercises that are similar. Like let's say you reach your peak on the dumbbell chest press and you're there for maybe like a whole month and you're getting frustrated because you don't like hitting your peak. Okay, go to maybe the hammer strength chest press, or go to a different form of chest press, or go completely to a fly exercise, change it around, working the same muscle group. You can do that. But also keep in mind that hitting your peak is not a bad thing. So here's what we run into, so you guys can know, because a lot of you are clients that listen. A lot of you are like, have been to trainers before, been to us, been to other people, whatever. But you're pretty experienced lifters to the you know the drill, basically. Here's what we trainers run into. Years ago, I went to Gainesville Health and Fitness Center to meet the owner, Joe Cirilli, who's kind of like a legend in the fitness business. The Gainesville Health and Fitness Center is the #1 health club in the entire world. And you know what? Usually health clubs like LA Fitness and places like that, so not personal training boutiques like I am, but big health clubs, they usually don't make it. They're not very successful because it's just a really tough business to be in. You get people like Planet Fitness who offer $10 per month. And so, obviously people are going to go there. You get the YMCA who take insurance for workouts. And, there's all these reasons why the big health clubs have a hard time making it, but not him. His club has made it, and he wins all these awards every year, and he's really high tech, and he's really kind of expensive, but it's worth it. Like he's the best for a reason. So a lot of us like to talk to him and, pick his brain. So I met him for lunch probably about 20 years ago, and we talked for a while. And he knows that I was a trainer, am a trainer, and he was a gym owner. So like two different professions, believe it or not. Very, very different professions. So I was picking his brain about some health club topics, and he was picking my brain about some training topics. And he said, yeah, I have like a bunch of personal trainers too. And he said, if I ever catch one of them beating the client up so they feel like they had a good workout, I fire them. And I knew what he was talking about, but I wanted to hear more. I said, really? So, you're that tough? Because that's a good thing. He says, yeah. If I see them just wanting that client to leave there and go, oh man, I had a great workout, but like they were pushing them harder than they should because they were trying to make a point or whatever, I let them go, because it means two things. One, they don't understand what's best for the body, and two, they don't feel like they're qualified enough to adequately explain why we don't do that. And I thought, wow, that's good. So what he means by that is a lot of times people go to the trainer and they want to feel like they left and they're just done. They're spent. They're sweating and their heart rate's high, and it's like, but that defeats the purpose of a lot of strength training. Like, yes, you should be pushed with strength training. Like, it is hard to get to momentary muscular failure. Like, once those muscles start to burn a little bit, it usually means you have 3 or 4 more reps left, somewhere in that ballpark. But those 3 or 4 more reps to hit is going to be hard. There's no question that's hard, and especially hard keeping your form intact. So that is really where the best training and trainers come in, and they make you accountable to that. But the best trainers, if you're there for a strength workout, which aren't you? I mean, isn't that the biggest reason why you go? I mean, do you really need a personal trainer to stand next to you when you're on a treadmill? I mean, I think you're there for strength mostly. So if you're there for that, you shouldn't be leaving there huffing and puffing. Strength training is not an aerobic workout. It is a strength workout. You should feel like your muscles are shot. Now, there are situations where it's a little different. Like, I've had people that really need to work on the circuit training because they're working, for reasons. They got to work on their altitude training because they're going to go somewhere else. I mean, again, if you listen to the principle of individuality, you can't go by what other people do. So there are reasons for it. But most people go for strength training. They go for personal training for strength training. They go into the gym. They should. I hate to sound judgmental, but you should be going to LA Fitness to using the strength machines and not necessarily walk on the treadmill. It's fine if you do, but I mean, the big reason these big gyms are there is to strength train. So the idea isn't to leave there like you've just been beat up. I mean, that's not the point. You should be following overload. Like, you want to get in the best program that's very numbers based, that the trainer's walking around with the chart. They know what weight you use, and they're pushing you to overload. They're pushing you to get better. They're not pushing you to just beat you up. So the problem with that is so many clients expect it, and they make little comments like, oh, I barely feel like I worked. And a good trainer will go, look, we're going to follow overload whether you like it or not. You're here for your first workout, and you might feel like you walked out of here and didn't work overly hard. But if you feel like you walked out of here and didn't get your money's worth, then you're wrong. You're really off base, and you don't understand what professional training is all about. Professional training is precision. It's learning what the client needs, and the first few workouts, it should all be about learning form. Just doing it better is a form of overload. Then after that, establishing rep ranges. Then after that, working on progressive overload, which it might take some time. Like, your first few times working out, you should not be hitting muscular failure. There is no need. It is stupid. I mean, the beauty of when you first starting to work out is that you get results like really, really fast. Like, you can do some form of overload, meaning you've never done a leg extension before, and you start with 20 pounds and did 10. Guess what? That's overload. You've already gotten better. Now take a person who's been working out for 2 years. No, that's not going to cut it. So you're in that kind of like that really happy point where no matter what you do works. So why would you want to overload and just beat the shit out of yourself essentially to feel like you got a good workout? I mean, where did that come from? Gym class? I mean, that's just not true. So it's very important to understand why that you're there and you're getting effective training, because too often times people seem to forget that message, and we have to bring them back and tell them, why they're there, and some of these smartwatches when it comes to strength training has made it worse, because they'll say, well, I only burn so many calories. It's like, well, that's because you're not getting up from your bicep curl machine and doing 30 burpees. I mean, and you shouldn't be, but that'll do it. But then how are you going to be on your tricep press downs? I mean, you have to remember what you're trying to do. And the point of strength training is to overload with more load and or reps, to do it in good form, and to get to momentary muscular failure. That's the point. And I promise you, if you're aerobically gassed, when you get to the next exercise, you are not going to be able to get to momentary muscular failure. You are defeating the purpose. So you have to understand that. Now also realize that overload completely works for cardiorespiratory exercise too. And you're not going to get better if you're not overloading. It's great to do your same old 3 miles, as you say, every day. Great for activity, absolutely. Great for burning calories, absolutely. If your goal is to get better at cardio, you have to overload. If you want to do a half marathon and the most you've ever run is 3 miles, you will have to overload. And guess what? It's the same 5 to 10% principle. So if your maximum run is 3 miles, next time you run it with 3.3 miles max. Next time after that, 3.6 to 3.7. So if you build up nice and slow like that, you will get to where you want to be. You will get there non-injured, and you will hit your goal. It takes discipline. And from my chair, from what I've seen, majority of people don't have discipline when it comes to that. They overdo it. I say go up a little bit. They're at 3 miles. Guess what they do? They go to 4. That's not 3.3 miles. That's a whole extra mile. That's a 25% increase. And then they come in and they're like, well, yeah, I know you said just go up a little, but, I actually ran an extra mile. I figured, what the heck? It's like, oh, okay. And then they do it again the next time. They go from 4 to 5 instead of the 3.7. This goes on for about 2 weeks. I said, hey, how's your half marathon going? I got something, in my foot. The bottom of my foot hurts. I'm like, oh, really? Go figure. So, I mean, it takes discipline to go, oh, okay, so I got to take this nice and slow. Overload is the principle that gets us there. You have to get more objective. Now, for people who have more math brains and people who like charts and flows, that's great to hear, because they're like, well, what did I do last time? You did this. Okay, so that's the goal. Yes, that's the goal. Great. I mean, That's an ideal way to think of it. If your brain doesn't work that way, that's okay, but you got to trust the process. And I promise you, if you don't overload, you're not going to get better. And if you overload, you're probably going to get an overuse injury of sorts, not be able to do that exercise, or not be able to run, or not be able to bike, or not be able to swim, and then you're damn sure not getting better. All right? So live in the principle of overload. I think it's the best principle. All right. Thank you, Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. You know, I always talk about how they're the best in customer service and the best in garage doors and all this. And Jeff and Zach Hawk are awesome. And it's all true. But like, let me give you something that happened just yesterday. We had Hurricane Milton roll in 2 days ago. And then yesterday we're kind of all cleaning up. And I get a text from a client that says, hey, don't you know the owner of Overhead Door? And I really need to get a hold of them. I got an emergency. So this is like literally, I don't even think they're open. Pretty sure they're not. And we're cleaning up from the hurricane. I said, yeah, I know him. So I texted Jeff, the owner, and he says, just have her call me. And I mean, that's the kind of service I'm talking about right there. I mean, personal and helpful. And I haven't followed up because I trust Jeff, and I'm sure I know he followed up. And so it's like, there you go, boom, bang, boom. Whatever happened with that garage door, I'm sure it's already been amended. All right? Can't beat that. Overhead Door, DaytonaBeach.com.